like some assistance?
Sure. Yeah, the last one.
Mark, we need to do this. I have my apron.
Okay, the time has come for all you to go grab some food if you haven't, and grab a seat, and we'll get started here relatively quickly, not too far behind schedule. You might as well start off the first schedule behind schedule, but if we could all sit down, we'll all start working on that. You can go outside and whistle. Go outside and whistle, Trudy. It's the Distinguished Whistler. This is this year's Distinguished Whistler, Trudy Fauser. Slowly but surely, people moving towards their seats. Are they moving this way? We forgot your Distinguished Whistler plaque, however. We're moving in. If you haven't gotten a little bit from the buffet, feel free to go do that. Moving in. Moving in. Are you looking at some of my briefing when you say it means nothing? You're looking at some of my briefing. All right. Mostly in. Snacks in the back. The bars are serving. You'd think they'd give me a gavel. No gavels. Any of the judges have a spare gavel? All right. Hi. How are you? All right. Welcome, welcome. This here is the first event of the Idaho State Bar 2022 annual meeting. I love all the hugs and hellos and how you doing that I get to see. It's awesome. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for joining us here. All right. So the first thing, the first official task I have is to introduce you to the current commission and future commissioners. So, what? Okay. Lindsay tells me that everybody hasn't come in yet, and wait. So I will just be quiet, which is unusual for me. It's not surprising, but there's long lines at the bar, so we're going to let the long lines at the bar get short before we formally get started. What? I don't know. I said we're going to eat, so I'm up here. So it comes from that. Yeah. All right, let's try this. We'll try this one more time on a timely lawyer. Oh, go ahead, Trudy. Our distinguished whistler says it's time to sit down. The scope of skills that Trudy Fauser has is unlimited. Welcome, everybody. Once again, welcome to the first event of the 2022 annual Idaho State Bar Convention annual meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Obviously, we're coming out of what we've lived through these last few years, and being together is a significant and important thing. That's why things are not being live streamed. We're trying to encourage people to be here and be with us. First thing I want to do is introduce you to and acknowledge the current commission. First person, it's interesting how an educator hangs out in the back, but immediate past president and representative from the 1st and 2nd District, Anne-Marie Fulfer. Your next Idaho State Bar president and my fellow 4th District representative, Kristen Bjorkman-Dunn. The word legend only attaches to a few people, and it attaches to both of these next two people. 5th District lawyer legend, Laird Stone. And 6th District lawyer legend, Gary Cooper. It is, one of the joys of serving on the commission is getting to know and work with people from across the state, and I couldn't ask for a better group to have worked with and learned from. And then my replacement, Mary. Where's Mary? Mary. Oh, she's at the bar. So at the bar is your next commissioner from the 4th District, Mary York. Wave from the bar, Mary. She can't hear. The speakers don't go out there, but it just seems appropriate. She'll come wandering in, and I'll say hi to her then. One of the important things, organizations and entities make our event happen, allow us to get together, allow us to be together. We particularly want to say to the 4th District, to Bar, a platinum sponsor, thank you very much, and thank you to LawPay. Thank you to the 4th District. Jim Cook, whose wife is at the bar. Oh, no, there she is. There's your next commissioner who is at the bar, Mary York in the back, waving, just setting her cocktail down. And also thank you to our gold sponsors, the University of Idaho College of Law. I saw the dean was here, but she's stepped away from her table. And Clio. So thank you very much to our gold sponsors as well. COVID changed a lot of things. Some things for bad, most things for bad. Some things for good. And one of the things for good was we learned that one of the ways to do this evening and to preserve this evening was to allow the recipients of our awards to be interviewed by a person of their choice. And then we have the interviews videotaped, and Lindsay Welfie edits them, so the inappropriate things are cut out and the interesting things are left in. And the recipients, we appreciate your cooperation, all the interviewers, and particularly to David Cromwell of Tucker and Associates for doing the production work on the video. David's great. And the first awards at the program tonight are for Outstanding Young Lawyer. That's an award that recognizes young lawyers who have shown professional excellence and provide services to the profession, the bar, the foundation, the Idaho Law Foundation, and the community. We have 2 recipients this year. We'll see them on video. This year's recipients are Jesselyn Hopkins and Colby Reddish.
Hi, my name is Mary Shea. I'm an attorney from Maryland, Maryland, the 6th District of Pocatello, and I am pleased to introduce Jesselyn Hopkin as the recipient of the Idaho State Bar Outstanding Young Attorney Award. Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Pocatello. I went to my undergrad at University of Idaho up in Moscow, and then came back to Pocatello for a few years, and then I went to law school in Moscow, 1 year in Moscow, 1 year in Moscow, and then 2 years in Boise at the U of I down there.
And we practice together in juvenile court. What do you like most about your practice now?
So currently I'm working for the public defender's office, and I do the juvenile and child protection caseload. The thing I like most about my caseload is working with the kids. I like having juveniles and youth as clients. I think that it's a different kind of practice because they really do have the ability to change. You can really help them moving forward. And so that's been kind of, I've worked with youth for a really long time, and so I feel like I'm lucky to have found kind of what I love right away. It only took me about a year to discover that this is what I want to do, work with juveniles. Kids are funny, kids are resilient, and I love seeing that. I love seeing kids do well and helping them become, the best adults they can become. Also, one of the other things that I absolutely love, some of my favorite stories are when I go see kids in detention, in our detention, or see them at court or see them out in the community, and just their smiles. Like every time it gets me.
What have you learned most since practicing law, especially in juvenile court?
Oh, I've learned a lot about my community, I think. Pocatello, directly Bannock County. Of course, I've learned a lot about the law. I think that in Bannock County especially, we have a really good team of people. And it's not a perfect place to live, but I know that we work every day to make it better for the kids that need help and the families that need help too. So I think, I had a case recently that really my privilege and where I sit, I grew up a pretty normal childhood. I was pretty lucky, and just seeing these kids, I'm learning a lot about the difficulties of growing up differently from the way that I grew up. And so just learning that and understanding that, the best thing we can do is just go out and help in all sorts of ways. But that would be the biggest thing I've learned, is just how lucky I am and how much a community can really help to change the trajectory for kids within their own community, which I think helps the community in the long run anyway. So that would be the biggest thing I've learned in the past few years.
That's a big lesson for a young attorney, I would say. And do you have any role models? And there is absolutely no pressure at all. Mention me.
Well, you already know that you have been one of my biggest mentors since I remember the first time we went and got drinks was after, a pretty brutal moment in my life, and you kind of led me in some good direction. And then when I got this job and actually working with you in court and seeing you in court, I'm like, that's how I want to be. Someone that works hard, knows the law, and really fights for their client. And so it's been really good for me to have that, I think, in my life. I think that's one of the things that young attorneys need, is just a mentor that can help them understand the court process, understand, the law, but then also help push them in the right direction. And so I appreciate that a lot. I think when I had talked with Lindsay from the bar, another one was just Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Her work has been life-changing for a lot of people.
Well, Jesselyn, congratulations for this award. You are more than deserving. I think folks don't know as much as the ones who work with you know how hard you work and how compassionate you are for the families you work with, and the good legal work that you do for them, defending them, juveniles, as well as families in Child Protective Act cases, some of the hardest, saddest cases that we see. And you do it with conviction, you do it with passion, you do it with intelligence, you ask all the right questions, and you've got a bright future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jesselyn, I have something for you. There we are. It's always fun to get the hardware.
Don't ask my boss, I haven't hung anything in my office. I've been there for 3 years.
If you don't get it done in the first month, it doesn't happen. Congratulations.
Just really quickly. Just thank you. That's all.
It's my pleasure to be here today to talk with a former coworker and outstanding young lawyer, Colby Reddish. Colby, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Well, I was born in Pocatello, Idaho, and then I was raised in Nampa, Idaho, and really lived in the Treasure Valley my whole life, aside from a little bit of time outside of the state for my undergrad in Provo, Utah.
Where'd you go to law school?
So I went to the Concordia University School of Law before it closed, sadly.
During that brief window.
That's right.
So we know roughly when Concordia was operating. How long have you been practicing?
5 years this year.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
I know.
What areas of practice have you been involved in?
So obviously I started my career in your chambers as your clerk. After that, I moved to the Ada County Prosecuting Attorney's Office and did about 10 months as a prosecutor there. After that, I moved to the Attorney General's office and spent some time with the Tax Commission, really learning about property tax and other state and local taxes. I did a brief stint with the Criminal Appellate Law Division, and now I am the Legislative Legal Counsel in Legislative Services.
This is probably an unfair question. Which of those jobs did you enjoy the most?
Well, obviously the one I have right now. No, I think, and I've told people this all the time. I mean, one of the reasons I asked you to be in this video with me is because my time as a clerk in your chambers was really formative to my legal philosophy. I really appreciate the judiciary's way of coming at problems, which is just completely objective, and I also appreciated the time as a clerk that I had to research down every single rabbit hole. So that was probably my favorite, was my time as a clerk.
Well, thank you for not mentioning the dartboard in the Chiefs conference room where we really sort out the difficult issues. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your family?
So my wife, Cami, and I have been married for 10 years this year. We met really in Arizona and then dated a little bit at BYU. And then I have 3 kids. Link is my oldest, and he's 8. He's into soccer and karate and obsessed with Minecraft. And then I have 2 daughters, Lily, who is my little dancer, determined dancer, and Evie is our baby. She's 3.
I know you're involved in a host of outside activities. Could you tell us about some of those?
Sure. So I am the chair of the Government and Public Sector Lawyers section right now because they got to the bottom of the barrel and needed someone to chair the section. And that's been a really great experience. But ever since I was a law student, I've been really involved in Attorneys for Civic Education. And I'm one of the co-chairs of that organization as well. I'm also a member of the Inns of Court here in Boise. And yeah, I just really believe in that lawyers have a special duty to help make Idaho a better place. And I think all of those organizations help with that.
Who have you looked to as a role model or mentor in your career?
I had a lot of really great professors at Concordia. So a few that come to mind, Chad DeVoe, I served as his research assistant for a few years, and he no longer teaches, but he taught constitutional law and really helped. I think he was one of my really formative professors. Tennille Fordyce Ruff was another one that was very formative for me. Other people that I really look up to and have been formative for me are the judges that I've worked around. So yourself, when I was a prosecutor, I prosecuted most in front of Judge Dave Manweiler, and he really taught me to be prepared, to be on time, to be professional, and I think really helped me see how much power prosecutors have in the courtroom, and that was also really formative to me.
This is your opportunity to share either an amusing anecdote or an important experience that you've had in the profession. Is there a particular story you'd like to share?
Thinking about a funny story from my time at the prosecutor's office, there's so many, but one of the ones that really stands out to me was I worked a case with a pro se defendant who believed, she was an immigrant from another country, and she believed that the entire system was in some grand conspiracy against her. And it was really just a struggle of understanding. But I took my time to explain the charges to her. It was just a minor misdemeanor charge. And later, after she pled guilty to that charge and it moved forward, she ended up suing everyone along the system, the judge, the other prosecutor's office, the police officer. But in her filing, she called me a very nice boy. So I like that somewhere in the Supreme Court's file, somewhere on that case, I'm referenced as a very nice boy.
AKA defendant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Colby.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, I'd like to invite a very nice boy up to the stage.
I think Jesselyn set a great example. I will just say thank you. There's so many people here who I admire, and thank you for this recognition. It means a lot. Thank you.
For his reputation as a very kind man, though I think that might have been the cruelest question I've heard somebody ask, Justice Horton. Yeah. This next set of awards. These are amazing people, both of these folks. As the commission, we sit and work through who are we going to choose for these recognitions. And when these names came to us, it was all of us were like 100%. This is exactly the type of jurist that we want to recognize with the Distinguished Jurist Award. The award honors a member of the judiciary who has demonstrated excellence, integrity, independence, fairness, service, and professionalism. This year's recipients are the Honorable Christopher Beater and the Honorable Candy Dale.
Well, I'm Russ Comstock, and I'm sitting here with my friend, the Honorable Judge Christopher Beater, Magistrate Ada County, and it's my distinct honor to interview a little bit about an upcoming award that I understand you're going to get, the Distinguished Jurist. And Chris, I just have to say, I've known you professionally for a couple of decades, and I just cannot think of anyone more deserving of this award who hasn't already got it. You're too kind. Now, Chris, tell me what got you started as a magistrate and what drew you to that career?
Well, Russ, between my second and third years of law school, a federal judge, Ray McNichols, used to hire a student between those 2 years to take a year out and work. And I was super fortunate because he wasn't sure he was going to continue working. He had had some heart surgery and wasn't sure he was going to stay on the bench. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and apply anyway. And I think I was the only one that applied. But I'd had a bad second year, needed kind of a boost to see if this legal world was for me, and lucked into that position and really changed my whole outlook on the law. And watching a great judge work a trial and prepare for a trial, if someday it might be something that I could be suited to.
What were you doing before that?
I was in a small office, husband and wife, little practice from when I left Judge McNichols, I went right to work with them doing everything. They did a lot of family law, which was not really an interest of mine, but we did everything. I did criminal work, I did adoptions, I did immigration work, I did general civil things, and just a great variety of helping regular folks out with problems. Just a delightful time working with them.
So when we're talking about the Guardianship Committee, we're talking about the Guardianship Committee that's a subcommittee, well, a committee formed by the Supreme Court. And you're kind of a policy making or advising, not making, but you advise the Supreme Court on policy regarding probate and conservatorships and that kind of thing. And so you chaired that committee from about what year?
I want to say maybe 2010. Maybe earlier. But
been that long? And you're still the chair of the committee,
I'm still
right?
the chair. Yeah.
Okay. What contributions do you think that committee, under your leadership, has made to this area of law that has been most meaningful for you?
Russ, there's about half a dozen things that I think are significant that we can really take some pride in. I think the number one thing is we have a coordinator in all of the judicial districts to review all of the reports of any person that's under a guardianship, and to troubleshoot and answer questions that the public has, put on programs to educate people about how to do this. And it's just been a terrific thing. Somehow we convinced the legislature. We had a pilot program that was super successful. We put it into the Supreme Court agreed to put it into the court budget, thinking that they wouldn't allow that because it's a significant thing. It was salary and benefits for a coordinator in 7 districts, but they passed it, and it's been the greatest thing, because then we have somebody looking at the human beings in every district who need this help.
Is there anything else about that committee that you chaired, that the work it's done, that you're most proud of?
We have a training program that every person who's applied to be a guardian or a conservator has to take, an online training. We won't schedule a hearing for them unless they've completed it. And I think that's resulted in better prepared guardians for everybody, children and adults.
Your family so important to you. What role have they played in helping you throughout your career?
My wife, Nettie, would say that she played the role in making me a judge. She encouraged me. She I think she knows my personality and what I'm suited to. And as difficult as it is sometimes to decide cases, I don't think it's as hard on you personally as being an advocate, worrying about the result of a case for a client, both the personal effect on them and the financial effect it might have. So she realized that I was a crummy biller. I just wasn't good at asking people for dough. and I think she appreciated having a regular source of income that didn't depend on my being tough and collecting.
What are some of the most memorable cases or entertaining cases you've had that you could talk about?
The world may already know this story, but it still gives me a grin. We were doing these debtors examinations, which are routine. You swear the parties in, and they usually go to a different conference room and have a talk to see what this debtor, what they own, where they bank, and what their jobs are. I called a name. It was an Arabic-sounding name. A woman stands up, says, "That's my husband. He speaks Arabic, and he's deaf." And we were trying to encourage the use of certified interpreters over family members. And so I said, we probably have to reschedule this and get a certified interpreter. But everybody was there. It's a simple, non-adversarial deal. It's just essentially a meeting. So I said, all right, if you can do this, let's just do it while everybody's here. And so I go carefully. Will you swear to faithfully translate from Arabic to sign language or whatever you have to do? Yes, yes. So we began the explanation of the process, and I said to the gentleman for her to translate, "Now, this lawyer wants to ask you some questions." And honest to God, she turned to her husband and said, "He wants to ask you some questions." I didn't keep a poker face at all on the bench. I just cracked up and thought, my Arabic, I'm ready.
There was a touching case, wasn't there, that you just had not too long ago about a will left by a father and inspired a song you wrote. Why don't you just briefly tell what that story is?
Another handwritten one-page will. They bring the originals to me, and you read them over and look at the petition. And the will said, "When my time comes, what's mine goes to my son. You're the best I could have hoped for." That was word for word what the will, it had his name and his son's name. But I was choked up in the office reading this wonderful thing. That would have happened anyway with the loss of intestate succession, but it certainly wouldn't have touched me like that. To see, here's a father contemplating his death. I don't know how, can't remember how long after he had written the will that he had died. It was obviously sometime though, and to be thinking of his son in that term was just a touching, wonderful thing, and kind of inspired a
song I've
music.
heard.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, many of us know you're a distinguished jurist, but what other distinguishing talents do you have?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Well, if I was being interviewed, I'd probably say a few things. You're a killer bass player.
Well, that was one of the great results of the COVID deal. My father was an amateur bass player and had a beautiful double bass that I inherited, and vowed I would learn it, and had it sit and didn't even open it. It's been over 20 years since Dad died, and I said, this is the time to do it. YouTube has tutorials. We got it restrung and fixed, and a new case built for it. We have an occasional get-together of colleagues who love to play. So I think that devotion to music outside, something outside of the law, is just a gratifying thing.
It's fun to watch you play that bass because you have a picture of your father playing that bass in your chambers, so it's really cool.
You feel his bones, you feel his vibrations in it. It's so cool.
Chris, I guess I'll kind of wind this up by just saying your demeanor, your respect for litigants and lawyers, your smarts, your leadership, I think from where I sit, this is a well-deserved award. So I just am very proud of you. Your parents would be very proud of you. Your family, I'm sure, is. I'm going to end the interview with just one last question. It's always been on my mind, And I'm going to take this opportunity to ask it, but for all those years, what was it like to be the mayor's brother?
Come on up, Judge. I think I want to ask you some questions.
Well, have a minute. I've got. My father used the Heisman Trophy to teach us table manners. He'd say, "You can't put your elbows on the table when you go to the Heisman banquet." So that shaped us up pretty bad, and I didn't quite make the Heisman Trophy, but this is my chance for the Heisman pose. You know, I'm just really humbled and honored to have this award, as much as anything, because you recognized we magistrates, and we're 100 of us, and it's very gratifying to be recognized, and I appreciate the commission's thought to include me, and by proxy all of us in this award. I wanted to recognize, as I said on the tape, the reason I'm here, my wife Nere, and our daughter Madalen, who's with us today. And it reminded me of a story. One of the reasons you can keep yourself humble in this job is pretty early. They used to have I think they still have this holiday parade in Boise, and I'd been on the bench a couple of years, and Madalen was 3 or 4. And we were at the parade, and the police officers would come up and shake my hand. "Judge, how are you doing?" I think they wanted to curry a little favor, and I think it impressed her. And she came home and said to my wife in Basque, she says, "Dad's not a judge at home, is he?" So always kept my head where it belonged around our house. I have to recognize 3 people, really. If I have any reason for recognition in a professional way, it's because of the Judge Ray McNichols and Louis and Jean Uranga. They took their names out of the tape, but if you, if you could practice law like Louis and Jean do, and if you could preside on the bench like Judge McNichols did, you'd have it made. And there would never be a concern about the reputation of attorneys or judges in the state. And if I'm a pale imitation of either of the 3 of them, I'm fortunate. So I thank you very much, and look forward to my classmate who's, I think, next on the list. Thank you all.
We're talking today with Judge Candy Dale, a co-recipient of the Idaho State Bar's Distinguished Jurist Award for 2022. My name is Lori Thompson. I came to know Judge Dale in 2001, back when you were then Candy Dale. And I'd always wanted to work for Judge Dale, and it took me a few years to convince her to do that, but I did talk her into hiring me as her law clerk in 2019, which it's been my privilege to serve as your law clerk. So take us through your work in private practice, from starting out with transactional work. How did you become a trial attorney?
Well, again, I realized fairly promptly as I started that maybe transactional law wasn't my forte or my interest area. And around that same point in time, both Dick Fields and Rich Hall, who were my mentors and senior partners at the firm, asked me if I would work on cases primarily involving medical malpractice defense. And I was interested in that, and I did that work. And as more work came into the firm, more work came to me to assist both of those lawyers and others. And so that led me to the trial attorney path. And I was able to learn and be mentored by, these two male attorneys who are recognized to this day as titans in the legal community and amazing trial attorneys.
So tell us about some of your most memorable or favorite cases that you've had since you've been on the bench.
This plaintiff had come to the United States illegally and was a farm worker in California. She was taken by her employer to the INS, where she was able to get a green card and be part of a farm amnesty program that existed. I think this was in the early 80s. She was told by the INS officials who took her green card that there was an issue with her green card after all these many years. And the issue was that there was another person with the same name who had her same I number, her same number in the system. And so things progressed to where the INS was actually considering charging her with fraud and other matters, but it was clear that it was her fingerprint and her photo and with her I-9 number on her green card that she presented for renewal. So she had counsel, they filed a lawsuit, and I drew the lawsuit, randomly assigned to me. But making it short was I ruled that the INS had made a mistake. And I also ruled that they had made more than one mistake along the way. And one of the mistakes was giving a green card with the same I number to people with a similar name. Going forward, about 6 months later, I was presiding over a naturalization ceremony and looked at the list of petitioners, and I recognized the plaintiff's name at the end of the list and looked out in the group and realized it was the plaintiff who was there as a petitioner because she's had, since the time that she got her green card renewed, had taken all the steps to be naturalized as a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure she realized it at the same time I did, but I know her family did because she had adult members of her family there with her. And when she came through the line, so to speak, to receive her certificate, it was a moment that I think is extremely unique in any judge's life, where I was able to reach out and hug this person who had actually received probably the greatest, wasn't a gift, but the greatest accomplishment in her life. And that wasn't winning the lawsuit. That was becoming a U.S. citizen.
So have there been people along the way who have influenced or encouraged you in your career?
There have been several, of course. And I mention Rich Hall all the time, but that was because of the closest working relationship I had with another lawyer until I went on the bench. Of course, here on the bench, Michael Williams first comes to mind, in part because I was his successor, and I was not his replacement because no one could replace him. Also, of course, Judge Lodge and Judge Windmill and Judge Boyle. And then shortly after I was appointed and started in my position, 6 months later, Judge Bush joined the then team. I can't leave out, and I won't leave out my husband, because I met my husband in law school, so he's been along for this ride all 40 years, and he's been an incredible support, and even during times when he needed the support from me for his own career. But he's been incredible, and we were able to have a family.
So you mentioned your husband Jim and family, and that they've been along for the ride for you, but both you and Jim are highly successful attorneys, and yet your daughter did not go to law school. Why is that?
Well, first off, you'd have to ask her. But from my perspective, it comes from early days when she was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she would say she wasn't sure, but she would promptly say, not a lawyer. Again, you'd have to ask her exactly why not. But the good news is she went on to be to college and med school and is just now finishing her training in the medical field and is a successful doctor.
How do you think your role as a judge and as a woman on the federal bench, or the first woman on the federal bench, influenced future generations?
I'd like to believe that it has, in the sense that I made mention to Sandra Day O'Connor becoming the first, when she became the first woman on the United States Supreme Court, and then there have been others that followed. So to be able to see other women accomplishing not only their dream, but accomplishing a dream that you might have, or an aspiration that you might have, or maybe it becomes a goal later in your career as a lawyer. If I had been able to create a presence and a place on the bench that other women and men look to and say, I can do that, then I do think that that is the positive influence that I brought to bear.
Were there any funny moments for you on the bench?
I was getting prepared for an arraignment and also a detention hearing, meaning to determine whether the defendant was going to stay in custody or was going to be released to the community. After the marshals came and talked to me, first the marshals came and talked to me and said, Judge, we have an individual who is in pain and is right now in a wheelchair and is suffering from back pain, and he's asking to lie on the floor during the arraignment because that's how his back pain is relieved. And so they were trying to get permission from me to have him lay on the floor during the arraignment in my courtroom. And I said, well, okay, as long as we can put him in a position where he can see me, and also I can, he can hear me, and also I can see him and hear him. And his attorney would be there. And I said, is he okay, in the sense of making sure he wasn't on too many pain relievers, right? So my courtroom deputy took me to the back of the courtroom before I was to enter, and she said, I understand you've cleared this, but just to be prepared, Mr. So-and-so is laying on the floor. We moved the microphone closer to him off the bench. She said, but he's propped his head up, and we don't have a pillow, so he's using plastic garbage can that we had in the courtroom, because that was the only thing that she could find. And so I said to the courtroom deputy, it's probably best not to say, all rise.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I want to thank the members of the Idaho State Bar for this award, and also for allowing me the opportunity to reflect on the past 40 years and all of the support that I've received all over these years from each and every one of the members of the bar. So thank you.
Judge Dale.
Okay, so I will break the string a little bit because Chris started to do that. I do want to make a couple comments, starting with recognizing the other recipients of the awards tonight, and of course starting with Chris Beater, who we did go to law school together and shared some tremendous opportunities and experiences then. Also Trudy Fauser, who'll be up here pretty soon. Trudy was just a year ahead of me, but she's not quite a year older than me. But a year older than me. You're welcome. Always kept that in mind. And then, of course, Bill Mock, who I practiced with as an attorney really early on, and then saw him in the courtroom and worked with him as a judge in the courtroom. And so congratulations to the two of you. Ford Elsasser, where's Ford? Back there, he's hiding. He's going to have the longest walk up here. But Ford and I also go way back, and he was in law school a little bit more ahead of us, Trudy, right? But Ford, University of Idaho graduate like most of the rest of us, and it's okay, Bill, maybe we'll give you an honorary Vandal degree. And then also, least but not least, to our young lawyers, Jesselyn and Colby, Jesselyn Hopkin and Colby Reddish, and we'll all be looking at all of the other amazing accomplishments that you're going to reach during your careers. I also want to thank the members at my table. I was realizing that some of you might have thought it was a little bit different to have a law clerk interview a judge. Law clerks don't get a lot of opportunity to actually make a public presence like Lori was able to do this evening. But the law clerks are so instrumental in what the judges do. I mean, you heard that from Chris Beater. And I've had the privilege of working with some amazing law clerks, one of which who went on to be a judge in Ada County, Nancy Baskin. She wasn't a law clerk for me, but I worked with her as a law clerk and with me for the whole 14 now plus years ride as Kirsten Wallace as a career law clerk. Annie Henderson, who's sitting next to Kirsten, was a law clerk in my chambers and then a law clerk for Judge Windmill, and now is with Holland and Hart. And so it's an amazing group of law clerks that we have working with the judges, and hopefully it's time for them to get some recognition along with what the judges do, because we wouldn't be much without them. A couple maybe a little bit lighthearted tidbits. When Lori and I watched the preview of this video, we were like, oh my gosh, Judge, you came off really serious. I was very serious, but we had a lot of fun preparing for it. And I think Dave Cromwell might have cut out some of the parts where we were laughing too hard to present ourselves this evening. And there was actually one moment at the end when I went to thank the members of the bar that I had what my family knows as a Sound of Music moment, when it was just the two of us having an interview and I teared up. And that just reflects how meaningful this award is to me. But a couple other little tidbits. I can't go on about the whole 40-year journey because it has been 40 years combined with my private practice and then on the bench. But one of the members of the bar, and I won't say who it was, works for the bar, I made a comment when I commented to her that, geez, I've been in the advocate now, this will be 3 times in 1 year. And she said, well, so-and-so said, this is the year of Judge Dale. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that this is probably the last year that's the year of Judge Dale. Okay. So next year will be somebody else. So thank you for tolerating that. I also had another friend who was at the retirement event that they had for me on no less than April Fool's Day. Comment afterwards that the one thing that was consistent with me during the time that I was on the bench, that I never changed my hairstyle. So I was just going to forewarn you that maybe the next time you see me, I'll look different. So I am on what they call recall status for magistrate judges. Magistrate judges, because we're Article I judges, we don't really get the title as senior status, but that's really what we are. When we retire, we go to senior status and for some reason decide that we're going to work despite the fact that we don't get any more pay. But as a magistrate judge or a bankruptcy judge, you have to get special approval from your court, from the circuit, and also from the administrative office of the courts or the judicial conference itself. So I'm going to steal a little bit. Judge Pappas recently mentioned, and I believe it was at Judge Gresham's investiture, that that term recall is just, it doesn't make much sense, and we don't really like it. It sounds like we're like a recalled jalopy or something like that, you know? And actually, we have more experience, right? But we were recalled to provide service to the District of Idaho, and I'm happy to continue to do that. I'm going to be continuing to taking civil cases and not doing much criminal duty. But I have a very wonderful successor, and Judge Gresham, thank you for being here today. My daughter Lindsay's here. All of you afterwards, if there's time, you can ask her why she didn't become a lawyer. Thank you to my husband for being here as well and driving me over here. I just want to leave with one last thought, and I had the privilege to be the first woman appointed to the federal court in Idaho. And so one of the sayings that comes to mind is well-behaved women rarely make history. So I guess I'm in the category of those that are not well-behaved because I did make history. And there's a lot more I could talk about, but I appreciate you listening and watching that serious video and all being here. And it was a very, it's a very meaningful award. So thank you all very much.
So this last group of awards that we give out tonight are the Distinguished Lawyer Awards. And this is, you know, we give awards to lawyers at multiple stages of their career, but this is by far the highest honor that the Idaho State Bar bestows on members of the bar. The recipients this year are Ford Elsesser, Trudy Fauser, and Bill Mock. But I think it's important that I also take a minute to recognize some of the past recipients who are here. Howard Beladoff is here, a past distinguished lawyer. Walter Bithell, Gary Cooper, Don Burnett, Jack Girding, Judge Grisham, Craig Meadows. I haven't seen Ken Pedersen. He was going to be here. I think I got everybody that I've seen tonight who's there. So it's great to have each of you here. And when you hear that list of names, it's an amazing group that these three get to join. So enjoy the videos.
Hi, my name is Katie Elsesser, and I will be asking Ford Elsesser, who is not only my father, but my law partner, some questions about his legal career. Why don't you tell us about where you grew up?
Thank you. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, on the Pennsylvania border, sort of the absolute buckle of the Rust Belt. My grandmother on one side's family started the city about 150 years before I was born, and was instrumental in building up the steel industry. It was a great place to grow up. My mother was a elementary school teacher at Washington Elementary, which overlooked about half of the steel mills in the valley. My dad was a trial lawyer in Ohio during his entire career.
So you would be a second generation attorney then?
Yes, yes. Yes, my dad went to Fordham Law School at night and worked at Radio City. He was one of the first stagehands at Radio City Music Hall when it just opened in 1934 during the day. And then he would take the subway down to Fordham Law School, which is in the Woolworth building in those days, before heading home to the family.
How did your, I guess, legal career start from after graduating from U of I to ending up residing in Priest River, Idaho?
Well, during law school, I was an intern at Eli Rapich's office in Lewiston, whose name some people will remember, and was probably going to end up working there after law school. I graduated early because I had taken summer classes, so I was graduating in December, and it was always well known that the ultimate candy course in your last semester, when grading was much tougher at the U of I than it is now, was to take administrative law. The professor was Tom Cook, who was a visiting professor from Priest River, who had graduated a few years before. And one day I just went up after class and asked him if he would be interested in hiring an associate. He said he had never given it any thought, but he promised he would. And about a month and a half later, Gene and I moved up to Priest River, Idaho in December 1977, and we've been here ever since.
Do you have one of your most memorable case or a case that defined your career?
Well, I think certainly one of the more interesting and dramatic cases was when I was appointed as trustee for the Aryan Nations Church, which was the first major white supremacist group that was active in North Idaho, and was famous for having marches through in Nazi regalia through downtown Coeur d'Alene. They filed Reverend Butler, who headed that church, filed Chapter 7. They had a beautiful compound up above the rim rocks along Highway 95 in north of Hayden, Idaho. And we took over that bank. I was appointed in that bankruptcy, and it was certainly high profile. In addition, as part of the sale, we were able to work as part of the court-approved sale with Judge Terry Myers, that I was able to take a semi-truck load of actual Nazi regalia, which included helmets, uniforms, pistol holsters, and so forth, some of them genuine, authentic Nazi regalia, and have the entire contents of the semi-truck incinerated at the waste-to-energy plant incinerator in Spokane.
And among notable cases, you did at one point argue a case up to the United States Supreme Court, correct?
Yes, in October of 1994, I had the privilege of arguing the Bonner Mall case before the U.S. Supreme Court. It was Justice Breyer's first day in the court. It was the first Monday in October. We were the third argument. He had just been sworn in earlier that day as a Supreme Court justice, and we were arguing for the elimination of the concept of vacature, the idea of vacating lower court decisions in order to create a clear path on appeal. We argued that to the Supreme Court and ended up 3 weeks later with a 9-0 opinion from Justice Scalia. And of course, it was a wonderful experience having the opportunity to argue before the Supreme Court in that setting.
Aside from bankruptcy, is there any area of the law that you enjoy practicing, whether being compensated or pro bono, an area of the law?
I enjoyed doing the The community work that I've been involved in, such as being chair of Bonner General Hospital for the last 14 years, it was particularly, while challenging, it was particularly very satisfying to get through COVID. I have done other types of litigation over the years. I guess one of the best experiences I've had, certainly in recent decades, have been teaching. I've always done a lot of CLE teaching on bankruptcy all around the country. At one time, traveled to, I think, about half the states, talking to state court judges about how they deal with civil litigation when one of their litigants is in bankruptcy. Bankruptcy issues for state court trial judges, which hopefully most of the Idaho district judges still have on their desk or in their bookshelf. But teaching at the University of Idaho College of Law and teaching at St. John's University. I've taught at St. John's since 2001, but teaching at the U of I College of Law has been a great experience. One, feeling like you're giving something back to where you learned. When Professor Joanne Henderson retired suddenly in the early 2000s, I took over the bankruptcy programs at the University of Idaho, and it's been a great experience, and it's been wonderful to see all of my to actually practice with so many of my former students and see the achievements of folks like Noah Hillen, our new bankruptcy judge, and Jason Nace, our U.S. trustee, and relatively new U.S. trustee, who were our former students. It's a very, very satisfying experience.
So, as Ford's daughter, one of the first things I hear whenever I introduce myself is, "Are you related to Ford Elsesser?" Because Elsesser is not a very common name. And as soon as I say it, whoever I'm talking to in whatever situation, it's, "Oh, I just love Ford. Ford's the best." And all my legal experience, I've never had anyone come up to me and not have just all positive things to say. He really helped us out in the bind. Great to work with. Everyone just says great things, and so it's a hard expectation to live up to. And when I'm struggling through a difficult case, or opposing counsel is just trying to make a case more difficult, and I want to go full steam ahead with, fighting tooth and nail, I always try and go back to what would Ford do, because he's always speaking about working together, and it's always in your client's best interest to have that, relationship with opposing counsel, relationship with the court, and being professional above all else, and helping the community. My parents both have always been around, are always the first to help with time or money or structure, or donating time to organizations in the area that need assistance. We grew, I grew up in a very small town where Ford still lives today, and I do as well. And it's amazing what a attorney from a small town of less than 2,000 can make an impact both in the state of Idaho and nationally. And I'm very proud to call him my dad, and I'm very proud to call him my law partner. And it's well deserved, and I'm very proud of him to be getting this award.
Just like coming down from Priest River, he has to come from way up at the top end of the room.
Well, thank you very much, everyone at the ISB, and
you really don't have any idea what a wonderful honor this is. And to all of you, greetings from Priest River, where our favorite bumper sticker is still Earth first. We'll log the rest of the planets later. And where, if you know what night to arrive, you can enjoy a delicious smoked spotted owl ravioli prepared by our other Priest River lawyer here tonight and other award recipient, Fonda Jovic. I have to say, from the moment Jean and I arrived and in Moscow in late July of 1975 till today, I've never been bored. I've always enjoyed every minute of the experience. It's great that at least 3 of my classmates today, Howie Beladoff, a prior recipient, Laird Stone, one of your commissioners, and Dennis Voorhees. It was great to see them here this evening. I loved the experience at the U of I and loved practicing all over the place, but always being centered in North Idaho. I want to mention just a few people that were very important to me. Tom Cook and Nick LaManna, who hired me out of law school, and coincidentally tonight, with Trudy receiving her award, and also practicing with her son, like I'm practicing with Katie. But the first Boise attorney I met was Jack Girding, who was very close friends their entire lives with my late mentor, Nick LaManna. Just a wonderful human being and one of the true mentors. And so I wanted to mention him tonight. Judge Dark Cogswell, who some of you may remember, who was our district judge in Sandpoint all those years, just that not only acted like a great judge, but looked like a central casting, perfect judge who passed away in the last 18 months. It's been a wonderful experience. I also want to specifically mention 2 of our deans at the law school, Dean Menard, who doesn't, to this day, I think doesn't nearly get the credit he deserves for getting the law school where it was when I went there, and turned it into the institution that it's grown into today. And I had the great pleasure of being able to finally, after 10 years of trying to beat it out of his son Tap, get a decent portrait of Dean Menard from a photograph that I had restored from the son of Ross Hall, who some of you might know was a great Life magazine photographer from Sandpoint. And it's hanging in the law school now. The next time you're up there, take a look at it. He did a beautiful job with essentially just a snapshot. I think he really deserves a lot of credit. And then the other dean that really brought our school to a whole new level, Don Burnett, another recipient of this award, who I am so grateful to Don for recruiting me to teach at the law school. It was just a wonderful experience. I didn't know how I would like it, and I really enjoyed it. As I said in the interview, for just to see your students blossom and become what they are today, and continue to all the time, has been a wonderful experience. But what Dean Burnett did was really as critical as what Dean Menard did, which was to get the law school in a new level, get through. There were 1 or 2 people who weren't that excited about a Boise campus, believe it or not. But look at it today. Total and unequivocal vindication for what Don did. And it's been a wonderful experience being associated with the whole Vandal law environment. And I joined Judge Dale in seeking to be sure we get Bill Mock an honorary degree sooner rather than later, if he doesn't have one already. So thank you, and of course I want to thank my family, my wonderful wife Jean, and our 3 children, Heidi, Matt, and Katie. And as you could tell from the last interview, Katie inherited from her mother an ability to get by far the last word in every discussion. So I'm sure that came through loud and clear. So thanks, everybody. This is great. I love it. Thank you.
Or as most lawyers like to refer to me as Trudy's son. I'm here today with the distinct honor of interviewing Trudy Fauser for the Most Distinguished Lawyer Award. Well, Trudy, let me start by saying what an honor this is. I've been following your career for a long time.
Well, thank you, Taylor. I would have to say that you've probably heard more opening statements and closing arguments and taken more verdicts before you were 12 years old than some lawyers have ever had the experience of doing. So, yes, you have been watching my career for a very long time.
And I'm the youngest of 3 children and the only one to make the decision to become a lawyer. And, you know, we like to joke with other attorneys that by the time I came along, you forgot to warn me not to get into this profession. And so my question is this: do you believe it? And I would remind you, Trudy, that you're under oath here today.
Well, Taylor, I would remind you I'm not under oath. And, you know, some days I feel very sorry for you that you're beginning your career. And there are a lot of challenges in being a lawyer, and especially, I think, in the subspecialty of litigation. I think every group probably feels this way. Probably wills, estate, trust lawyers feel the same way. Transactional lawyers feel the same way. But for me, I think litigation is, it is a tough profession because you're trying your best, but there's always someone on the other side trying to find the flaw in your argument or something you missed or a weakness you might have constantly. And so it is difficult at times. And there are many times where I remember being at the dinner table, especially when you 3 were teenagers, and saying, you know, that's it, I'm quitting, I'm staying home. And one of you would inevitably look over at Jack and go, she's just kidding, right? She's not going to stay at home. And I never did. And because it's usually really interesting work, and it is oftentimes very satisfying, and every once in a while it is incredible. So I'm glad you've joined the ranks.
How about sharing, you know, one of those moments where, you know, you felt that satisfaction at the end of the day?
Well, I think every time, either with a judge or a jury, you're able to get your client's point and position across well enough that they agree with you is incredibly satisfying.
When you win?
And when you win is very satisfying. I do remember one medical malpractice case representing a family practice physician who I thought the world of, who I thought was so incredibly passionate about his work and genuine and sincere, but a little shy, and his deposition went very poorly. But we found ourselves in trial, and we worked and talked about it, and I wanted more than anything for the jury to see what I saw in him. And after direct and then after cross, I knew they had. And for some reason, that's just stuck with me through all those almost countless trials now.
Yeah, you've had so much trial experience. You belong to the American College of Trial Lawyers. You are an advocate member for the American Board of Trial Advocates. Now, how many trials do you have to get in order to become an advocate?
You know, I could be wrong on this, but I think to become an advocate, you have to have 50 completed trials.
Which in this day and age is up there.
You have to do this a long time. And don't ask how long, please.
Well, I mean, you must have one entertaining story from all of these trials that you can share with us.
The plaintiff had been charged with arson but acquitted. And his insurance company had denied liability for his house burning down, and they claimed that he probably burned it down himself. After he was acquitted by a jury, he sued the insurance company for bad faith, for denying the payment. And I found myself in trial on that. And I remember that he lived, I think it was in Idaho City. And what they found was the day before the fire, he had opened for the first time in his life a safety deposit box. And he had in it all of the negatives from the pictures he had taken from years and years. He had his birth certificate, he had his passport, all safely put into the safety deposit box. And then he had called a friend in Idaho Falls and said he wanted to come over for the weekend. Well, the wife didn't like him particularly, but she went to, he pulled in the driveway, she went outside to greet him, and she turned around to her husband, because she looked at his car, and she said it looked like he had everything he owned. And I said to my husband, you said he was coming for a weekend. And she said he even brought in framed pictures to put in the room where he was staying. About a week before, he had also unfortunately fallen behind in his house payments, but was able to pay and get caught up on his insurance premiums. So
Please tell me you got a defense.
they were actually out a long time.
Can't be too careful.
But yes, we did get a defense verdict. And so, and one of the jurors who was excused had been doing her own research on him. And when the judge went to check the research to see whether or not the juror should be removed, she found he had an outstanding warrant. So the poor guy not only ended up losing the trial, there was a deputy in the back of the room that handcuffed him and took him away.
About your kind of activities outside of the courtroom, you also give back to the bar. How do you feel that has helped you in your career?
Well, it's helped me far more than it's helped any giving back that I might have done. I was lucky enough to become one of the first members of the Idaho chapter of the Federal Bar Association, and then later became their president and a Ninth Circuit lawyer representative, which was absolutely fascinating, especially being able to get a trip to Southern California and or Hawaii for their conferences was just a great experience. And then on the state side, I became a bar commissioner, and I found that 3-year stint was probably the most enjoyable position I've ever been in. And to learn as much as I did about how this organization runs, how well it operates, you cannot say enough about our executive director, Diane Minnick. I mean, it's just amazing. So I really learned a lot and enjoyed that tremendously.
And, we could talk about all the traits that make you distinguish. I think of, your experience, your commitment to the bar, your preparedness, professionalism. But from my perspective, when I think of what makes you distinguished, one of the things that stands out to me, and I might be a little biased here, but is how you were able to build this successful career and yet still be a mother and raise 3 children. And, asking for a friend on this one, I guess, the question is, how do you do it?
In a way, that's a hard question because so much of it is a blur now. but going back, I mean, we struggled even in my day. And I think what helped me the most was balance doesn't mean perfect. And some weeks you'll be home with sick kids. I remember when the three of you all had the chicken pox one summer at different times. Or you're in trial. And one time I came home and Jack said, the kids want you to go up and kiss them goodnight. And I said, what kids? But overall, it does seem to balance out. And if you kind of set some boundaries and rules, and one of mine was, I'm going to be home to cook dinner. Now, unfortunately, we ate the same thing about every other night for 20 years, but I was home for dinner. And one of the nicest compliments I thought you ever gave me was when you were telling me about one of your little friends whose mother was a real estate agent. And you said, she is such a hard worker. She works at night. She works on Saturdays. She sometimes works on Sundays. And we were at the dinner table, and I looked at Jack, and then I looked at you, and I said, well, so she's a hard worker? And you said, oh, she's such a hard worker. And I said, well, what kind of worker do you think I am? And you kind of looked around, and you were 7 or 8, and gave it some thought, and you said, you're a medium worker. Which I took as a great compliment, because you obviously thought I was around quite a bit.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to have to remember that one for your annual review. Well, that's all the questions I have, Trudy, and, congratulations again. I'm so very proud of you. I cannot think of anybody more deserving.
Thank you, Taylor. I'm going to time this so I don't go too long. First of all, I want to congratulate the other award recipients. Such an amazing group to be associated with. Candy and I grew up together, and yes, Ford, it is cool we are receiving this recognition at the same time. And I want to thank the commissioners for selecting me for this recognition. There are so many incredible lawyers in our state that deserve this award. And it's not lost on me how fortunate I am to receive it. I grew up in a very small Idaho town, Malad City, 1,800 people. I had never met a lawyer. I had never even considered that there might be an option of being a female lawyer. And in fact, when I went to law school, I did get into law school, but I didn't go to law school to even become a lawyer. So as you might imagine, looking back over these 40 years, I would never have imagined being here tonight. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my village. And they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise a lawyer and to raise someone to become a trial lawyer. Because I figured out I wanted to be a trial lawyer. So my village includes friends. And I have some amazing friends, but one of my dearest is here tonight. We went to law school together. She was Janelle Casper. I was Trudy Hansen. We hung out. She shopped a lot. I worried about flunking out. But one time we applied for the same job with a judge. And I showed up for the interview. She was there as well. I came in
in kind of a leather jacket, a little skirt, and I came from a small town, never having met a lawyer, and I had on these great suede cowboy boots. She took one look at me, and she said, "Those aren't going to work." And she literally took off her high heels and swapped them out so that I could wobble into an interview wearing high-heeled shoes and looking professional. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a friend. And that is what women need to do and do for other women. I didn't get that job, but she is my dearest friend, and it was the beginning of a lifetime love of high heel shoes. And also the support of lawyers. My village includes support of so many lawyers, both male and female. When I first became a lawyer, I spent a lot of time trying to explain in my navy blue blazer and high heels that no, I was not a flight attendant, but I was going to be their lawyer. And there were other lawyers who tended to be a bit condescending, but there were so many others that treated me with respect and made me think, I can be a lawyer. I can do this. And it included respected members of the bar, such as Bob Alexander and Craig Meadows. They made a difference to me because they looked at me as though I was a lawyer. And even judges helped me tremendously. One time, my second jury trial in front of Judge Lodge. And I had had my first jury trial by myself, and the result had not been positive. So now I know what a loss feels like. And then we're waiting for the second one, and the jury's been out about 4 hours. And they're back. And the judge says, "Counsel, let's go take the verdict." And I turn to him kind of in a panic, and I say, "Can't we just say good job and go home?" I could tell he almost wanted, I know him, he wanted to put his arms around me and say, "Oh, you poor thing." But he didn't. No, he looked at me and he said, "Ms. Fauser, that's not how we do it. Go out and take the verdict." And that is what helped me so much, because I began to feel like I belonged. I was told, the problem is you didn't play high school football. Or you're smart enough, but blonde hair with a jury? But you know what? 65 trials later, it all works out. And it all works out because of your village. It works out because of the lawyers who, after a win, congratulate you. And it's after a loss, they commiserate with you, whether they're on the plaintiff side or the defense side. They let you know they care. Even jurors. Sometimes I would actually get emails after a trial remarking on maybe a scarf I wore or a bracelet, but most of the time they talked about the facts and the law. They didn't look at me any differently than they looked at the males. That is what success for me is. That is what the village is comprised of. And clients who had faith enough to let me go to trial with their case. Even though I remember one, halfway through a medical malpractice case, a physician turned to me. Granted, we had kind of a bad day, and said, "Is it going to take a miracle?" But he hung on with me, and we got our miracle. That's the village. That's what takes people who think maybe they don't belong, maybe they don't fit in, maybe this isn't for them. That's what makes it all work. That's what makes me feel like I now fit in. All of you, my village, and the support I have received. And let me just focus for a moment on my children. Taylor is here. The other two, we had a COVID, shall I say, I hate to say the word outbreak this morning, but two of them are unable to attend because of that. But they have been on this journey with me. We had them when we had a house for our law office. We had them being vice president of leaf raking. They became runners. They became jury watchers. And ultimately, one of them became our newest partner. They have transformed this firm, this younger generation, into a cutting-edge place. And with them, and two of our attorneys tonight with us are Eric Stokes and Katie Freeman, and they are making a difference. And don't think for a second, these younger lawyers, I mean, they are on fire. They are going to make a difference. They are going to change the world. And these three children of mine, there is no way I could ever show them my appreciation. I have learned so much from them. They have given me so much. I'm incredibly proud of them, and they are my family. And then there's the center of my village, my husband, Jack Girding. Let's face it, a little town, Malad. We generally graduated from high school from there and got married. I was a little cork on the ocean. I could have gone in several directions. But you entered our family, and you brought stability and love. You were the one who made sure we had dinner every night for just about 20 years. And most of all, over the last 30 years, what you have given me and what everyone should have the benefit of having is someone who listens to them. You listened to me. You cheered me in whatever I wanted to do. My wins have been so overblown by this guy, and my losses brushed aside as though he doesn't even remember they happened. So how can a person with that type of village, with the friends and the lawyers and the judges, and a family like this, how can they not thrive? I owe it to my village. You are the type of spouse that every one of us deserve. And I want to thank my village. Thank you very much.
Here with Bill Mock, one of this year's distinguished lawyers. We're going to talk a little bit today about the journey of being a Pocatello boy to distinguished lawyer in Idaho and some of the stops you've had along the way. So let's start. How'd you get out of Pocatello into Southern California for college?
I wanted to get out of Pocatello. I was determined to get out of Pocatello. And the short story is that Yale turned me down, and USC was my backup. So I went to the University of Southern California and applied there largely because my parents had both gone to the dental school at USC, and they were pretty rabid USC fans. So I got admitted, sight unseen. I'd never seen the campus. I took a bus from Pocatello to Salt Lake City, where I got on got on a train.
Different era.
Yeah, and rode the train to the depot in Los Angeles, and that was my first time to see the campus of USC.
And well, USC, sort of something that we've seen through your whole life, leadership roles, activism. Talk a little bit about the leadership roles and activism while you're at USC.
Well, I was very involved in student politics, as I had been in high school. I was the student body president of Pocatello High School. I was the student body president of Hawthorne Junior High School. I had an ambition to be president of whatever school I was going to. And I got heavily involved in student politics at USC, ran and got elected as student body president in 1968. The week after I was elected, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and the campus was shut down for a day. And then that summer, the presidential primary in California, Robert Kennedy was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. I was actually a McCarthy supporter, but the assassination of the candidate was just horrific. And it really altered my perspective of being a student body president. It wasn't all about pep club and rah-rah and that there was a political dimension to it. And I wasn't the only one who felt that. I teamed up with other student body presidents in California from Stanford, Caltech, and Berkeley, and we held press conferences, and we talked about student unrest on campus. We talked about the war in Vietnam, which was affecting everyone because of the draft that would pick you up if you dropped out of school and you'd end up in Vietnam, and because of what was happening in civil rights, which was impacting me. Probably made a huge impact on my life to live in an inner city school surrounded by a black community and see the tension between the campus and the black community, as well as the internal tension that was building at that point in 1968, 1969.
Yeah, how'd you decide to come back to the West, back to Boise, Idaho?
We looked for jobs, Susan and I, all over the West, Albuquerque, Seattle, Portland, Denver, and Boise. And we came out here between our second and third years to do a series of interviews. I had Henry McQuaid from Pocatello.
Former justice.
Former justice on the Idaho Supreme Court. My mother knew him, and so I used that as an intro to apply to Justice McQuaid. So that summer, I came out and interviewed with Justice McQuaid. It was a pretty stiff interview, but when I was walking out, Chief Justice Alan Shepard's clerk, Rick Mellon, came up to me and said that Chief Justice had seen my resume and wanted to talk to me. So I went into his chambers, and he offered me a cup of coffee, and I thought that was great. And he offered me a cigarette, and I thought that was great. And he and I smoked cigarettes and drank coffee and talked for about 45 minutes, and he hired me to be his clerk.
Another sad situation that actually has a somewhat happier ending is the Paradis case that you were involved in later on. Talk a little bit about Don Paradis.
It was a happy ending. It took 20 years off of Paradis's life. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He was on death row for 17 of the 20 years that he was in prison. So I worked with Ed Matthews from Coderre Brothers, and Ed really took the laboring oar and all of that. I did the depositions, I did the testimony at trial and hearings in front of Judge Lodge. Those were the main contributions I made, and they did most of the briefing on the case. But I spent 17 years on that case, 17 years on that case, and ultimately 2 trips to the Ninth Circuit, 1 trip to the U.S. Supreme Court. Final hearing, Judge Lodge agreed with us and removed the death penalty. It could have been retried, but then we struck some sort of deal, and parties pled to destruction of evidence. And it was free men.
Yeah. Satisfying result, one of those satisfying results.
Oh, it's particularly after 17 years, it's very satisfying, but it's also satisfying to save someone's life.
Yeah.
Particularly when they're not guilty.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your, unique things you've done, and one of the very unique things I know that you've done is related to September 11th and the tragedies of that day. So talk a little bit about Trial Lawyers Care and what you did supporting the victims of the September 11th bombing.
I have to say at the outset, what got me into Trial Lawyers Care and to helping the victims was that my brother almost died. His offices were on the 89th floor of the North Tower, just 4 floors below where the first plane went in. And we didn't know if he was alive or dead until later in the day. But the Association of Trial Lawyers of America, on whose board I sat, had the vision to lobby Congress and a key group of congressional leaders in the Senate to create the Victims' Compensation Fund, the September 11th Victims' Compensation Fund. And at a board meeting in Washington, D.C. in November, a couple of months after the attacks, I talked to Leo Boyle, who was the president, and I said, you know, what you should do is you should handpick the lead cases that are going to go through here to set precedents in areas for cases to follow. Without even batting an eye, Leo said, well, do you want to do that? It hadn't even dawned on me. I came back, I talked to my wife about it, I talked to my partners about it. My partners said they would take care of my cases, and I went back to Washington, to New York City, and I helped start Trial Lawyers Care. I ultimately ran what we call litigation support, which was really nothing more than supporting the 1,200 volunteers around the country on helping people to get compensation. I thought I would be able to do it in 3 months. That didn't work out, so I stayed another 3 months. I handpicked the first 30 cases that went through, argued several of them, and we set precedents for cases to follow that made a huge difference in terms of the awards that these people got.
Let's talk a little bit about people who have made you a better lawyer over the course of your career.
My wife has made me a better lawyer. We went to law school together, but she did practice law. When I got my job with the court, she got a job with Attorney General Wayne Kidwell as a Deputy Attorney General. She ultimately became the Chief Legal Counsel for the Board of Education and did a long stand with that and enjoyed it. She argued cases before the Supreme Court as a Deputy Attorney General. Anyhow, it's a longer story. She ultimately decided she didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, so she went back to school and became a therapist, a psychologist, and had a thriving career doing that. But the real important piece of that is the luxury of having a spouse who's a lawyer. She understands what I do. I understand what she did. She's interested in what I'm doing. And she understands not only the law, but what it is to be a lawyer. Her father was a lawyer. Brothers were lawyers. The time it takes, the anxiety it creates in your life. And that partnership is worth its weight in gold. It's been wonderful.
Bill, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Having you invite me to do this has been great. It's been a great honor for me, and I've enjoyed talking with you a ton today. Come on up, Mr. Mock.
Buddy, how are you? God, I'm already choking up and I can't even talk yet. Nobody told me how long I could talk. So I worked on a speech that is about 10 minutes. And then Trudy told me I only had 3 minutes. And then Holzer told me I had 5. But thankfully, all of the other recipients have ceded much of their time to me, so I'll be able to give most of my comments to you today. I really, really appreciate this award, more than I can fully express. I want to thank so many people, and I'll begin with those of you who are in the audience today, many of whom are my dearest friends, and I appreciate your taking time out of your busy days to be here, not just for me, but for all of us. And my congratulations to all the recipients, all of whom I've, with the exception of Ford, I couldn't appear in bankruptcy court. It's all code over there, but the rest of you, I've been in your courtrooms, I've tried cases with you. These are all well-deserving people, and I am just proud to be on the platform, sharing this platform with all of you. I really do appreciate it. My deepest thanks to the bar commissioners on selecting me, and our profession could receive is to be acknowledged with distinction by those who know what it means to be a lawyer in title and in deed. And I'm pleased beyond anything I've ever done in my professional career to be standing before you today. It comes a little late in my career. I've been practicing law for 47 years, more than some of you were even born. But I've had the pleasure of being a lawyer, and mostly I'm proud of being a trial lawyer. That's what defines me. That's what I've done for these 47 years. I consider myself very lucky to have found a career that fits my temperament, to have been challenged all, and has given me a sense of pride and fulfillment in what I've done. This month has been really very difficult because it's been very introspective. Like all of the recipients here, I was interviewed for the video you've seen, and if you're really interested, there's a half-hour version, they tell me, on YouTube or Facebook, or for whoever knows how to get access to that stuff. And for an article that will appear in the Advocate, which summarizes my career in 1,200 words or less. And now there's this ceremony. It's a little bit like actually planning your own funeral, where you get to help draft the obituary, and then they invite you to actually do the eulogy. So that's what it's going to be a little bit like today. They're mundane. There are too many to name, but allow me to really name a few who are really so important. And I wouldn't be here today but for these people in my life. First and foremost is my wife, Susan, the love of my life,
We met in law school. She was a beautiful, classy woman from New York City, for whom Idaho couldn't have been more foreign. After several years of wooing her and chasing her, she consented to marry me. We got married the week before we graduated, and we headed west. First, we stopped in Pocatello, my hometown, where I was offered an associate's position for $900 a month. And my wife said, "Keep going." And we went to Boise. And as you've heard here, I landed a job with Alan Shepard, the Chief Justice of the Idaho Supreme Court. Wonderful jobs with the Deputy Attorney General's office, head of mental health, and then the head of the Council for the Idaho Board of Education. I think it's really interesting tonight that so many of the recipients here, their spouses are lawyers. Trudy and Jack, Jim and Candy, Susan and me. Who did I miss? Left out? There's someone else. It's a unique experience. It's not a unique experience. It enriches your life to have a spouse who understands what it means to be a lawyer, who understands the travails of all of that. And my wife of 47 years, she's been my best focus group and the best editor of most of the things that I've written. And I truly appreciate the importance of that. Of little note, but important to me, Susan Mock was, by my count, the 51st or 52nd woman to be admitted to the bar in the state of Idaho. Some of you are younger. Think about that for a minute and think about how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. I also share this with my faithful partners over all these years. Again, in some ways, too many to name, but together in a series of partnerships, we built thriving firms as friends, as devoted practitioners, most particularly Craig James, my partner for decades, who second an extended period of time, who's a distinguished lawyer and a distinguished politician, retiring this year from the Idaho Senate. Very proud of them. And I wouldn't have been able to do the work that I did in New York without Craig and Grant picking up the laboring oar on my cases. Let me give credit also where it's due to the wonderful secretaries I had. I can't think of an exception. They were perfect. They made me look better than I am. They corrected my spelling errors, and I'm a terrible speller, and my punctuation. They cared about the clients that we had. They were invested in the cases. The clients learned to call my secretaries because they could get answers more quickly than waiting for me to return calls. They were delightful people, and I would never have accomplished anything that I did without the secretaries who supported me through my long career, each and every one of them. Some of them were going to be here tonight. Unfortunately, they had some health issues, but I'm very, very pleased. I will acknowledge, though, Shelley Miller, who's sort of runs our office today. She's very bright, she's very talented, she's just sweet as can be. And at the young age of 50, she's going to be attending the University of Idaho Law School this fall. All right. Finally, let me talk about I guess in some ways the most important people in terms of my accomplishments as a lawyer. And those are the clients that I represented. I never forget the clients. They put their faith and their trust in me on problems that were life-altering in their lives to get them some modicum of justice, to get the money that they were entitled to give them back their dignity that they deserved. And I have the greatest respect for each and every one of them. There are a bunch of war stories that I could tell you with all of them, but that would take far too long. I've had a good luck, the good fortune really, of having a bunch of highly publicized cases. Some of you know who those cases are, and others of you are too young. What I discovered in going through the preparation for this and the interviews that I had on this, that there are thousands of lawyers out here who've never heard the name of Claude Dallas. And some of you out here are nodding your heads and don't know who the hell I'm talking about. But I had the good fortune in many ways to represent a man charged with murder in one of the most notorious and publicized cases in the history of Idaho. It was selected as one of the 10 most important cases of the last century. And in many ways, it marks me. When people talk to me, they want to know about the Claude Dallas case. Yeah. If you want to know more about the Claude Dallas case, there's 2 books and a grade B movie for television and an article that I wrote for The Advocate and a few paragraphs in the Advocate article that the bar is going to publish today. But really the more important cases to me are the everyday people who came to me, asked me to help them, and I invested in their case. I had a passion for their case, and they all became my friends. There are a number of them here in the 5th District that I was going to talk about, but I won't go on at length about it. But I'll tell you about one case that I think in many ways sort of illustrates how important these clients are to me and to my being able to get to this award. I had a young woman who came to meet me in my office, and she worked as the night clerk at a motel up near the Boise airport. She was probably in her early 20s. She was making minimum wage, and she came to me because the owner would come in night after night and hit on her, and she wanted it to stop. She was tired of it. And I talked with her, and I told her candidly that the case really wasn't worth a lot, and I could hardly afford to help her if we had to litigate the case. But I would file the case with the Idaho Human Rights Commission, which I did, and we pursued it before the Idaho Human Rights Commission. And in the course of that, there was a mediation. And we sat with the owner's counsel and the investigator for the Idaho Human Rights Commission, and ultimately worked out a settlement where she got $12,000 and I got $4,000, and it brought the case to an end. She came out of that meeting in absolute tears. I really choke up even thinking about it now. She looked at me and she said, "This is the most money I've ever had." And we gave her back her dignity. and we gave her back something, which was a tribute that what happened to her was wrong, and she got some vindication. We didn't have to go to trial, but every one of those cases like that came to my office meant something to me. And the people that I represented became my friends. They became my fishing buddies. They became people that we saw at celebrations year after year after year. And I cannot accept this honor without sharing it with every one of them, because I wouldn't be here today. But for the investment they made, the courage that they had, the clients who I represented who at time to time when there was an offer on the table said, take no prisoners. And we went forth, we went to trial, we won those cases, we vindicated their right, and I felt wonderful, wonderful. So, at this stage of my career, really the question I'm most commonly asked is, when are you going to retire? I get it at least once a week, it seems like. It always causes me some pause. I'm never quite sure whether the person is asking the question because they think I'm well overdue, or if they just want to know if I'm going to die before I finish their case. As a consequence, I've developed a lot of compassion and empathy for women whose mother-in-laws keep asking, so when are you going to have a baby? It seemed much the same to me. I've never had, and I still don't have an exit plan. I take too much pleasure in doing what I'm doing. I don't golf. I don't own a sailboat. I don't own a recreational cabin in Sun Valley or McCall. My wife and I have traveled to 35 countries, to 6 continents. We attended 5 Summer Olympic Games with our sons. And I really don't know how to do anything as well as practice law. And I get real rewards out of it. So I don't have an answer to the question, but I guess if I have to ask one, I'm going to retire when Tom Brady retires. So enough said. Thank you for listening to my premature eulogy. Being a lawyer has been a great and exciting life for me and for my family. I hope all of you will have even half the pleasure that I've had practicing law. I'm absolutely delighted by this tribute, and I'm forever grateful for those who have shared in its rewards. Thanks very much.
You know, how do you follow this group of people? It's remarkable, a joy to be here. I get to do the housekeeping here at the end. Continental breakfast begins at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in the Pillar Falls room. Registration also opens at 8. Following breakfast, the opening session begins at 9 a.m. The plenary session features a short Idaho State Bar update. That means you have to listen to me. You get to listen to Chief Justice Bevin from the Idaho Supreme Court. We get to listen to Dean Kalb, and then our keynote presentation, James Goodenow. We hope you'll be here for tomorrow's events and attend them. The Service Award luncheons and the Idaho Law Foundation annual meeting honoring ISB and Law Foundation Award recipients. And one of the very fun things about the annual meeting is the milestone celebration honoring the 50, 60, 65, and 70-year attorneys. Lunch and the evening reception will take place in this room. Please visit the exhibitors, introduce yourself, make them happy they are supporting us. If you obtain the initials of the sponsors on your exhibitor passport, you'll be eligible for the grand prize drawing. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is the first event of the first annual meeting in Twin Falls. It's nice that it has the facilities. One of my partners said, Twin Falls, said, it's a beautiful place, John. Just because you spent all your time being yelled at by John Lathamies whenever you were down here doesn't mean it's not a beautiful place. Congratulations to distinguished lawyers Ford Elsesser, Trudy Fauser, Bill Mock, our distinguished jurists, the Honorable Christopher Beater and Judge Candy Dale, and our outstanding young lawyers, Jesselyn Hopkin and Colby Reddish. Look forward to having everybody. I think now is a perfect time for a cocktail. Thank you, everybody.